Until about 2 months ago, I was the chief exec of the Recruitment and Employment Confederation, and I did that job for 10 years. And I decided last year I was going to leave and do something else, and they were very nicely asked me to continue to chair the Good Recruitment Campaign. And for those of you that don't know what the Good Recruitment Campaign is, it is something that we created about 4 years ago, which is about sharing and promoting best practice within recruitment. There are 9 key principles of best practice, and there's a whole range of benefits of becoming a member. But what I'm going to talk about today in the next 45 minutes is I'm going to touch on what's going on within the jobs market today. Because one of the things that we have at the REC and within the Good Recruitment Campaign is lots of data about the jobs market. And if any of you are in the process of recruiting, then clearly understanding the dynamics at play within the jobs market is hugely important. I'm then going to tell you about what's going to happen in the next couple of years, because there are some challenges at the moment, but it is only going to get worse. And then I'm going to talk about some of the macro longer-term trends. And then as we sort of get about halfway through, I'll talk about 2 particular pieces of research that we've done in the Good Recruitment Campaign. One about the cost of getting recruitment wrong, and the second one about the candidate experience and how you need to think about measuring that so that you can improve it. So that's what I'm going to do in the next 45 minutes. The starting point, I suppose, is the UK jobs market. Now, I was hugely disappointed in the general election campaign last year, when in reality the economy wasn't talked about a lot and the labour market was talked about even less. But actually, at the moment in the UK, we have a hugely successful labour market. So we have record employment, 32 million people employed, more than ever before. We have very low unemployment, 4.2%. And last time we had figures like that was 1971 to 75. So we have record employment and very low unemployment. Now, that's a good position to be in if you're looking at it from an economic perspective. But it does throw up some challenges. And one of the challenges is that 4.2% equates to about 1.5 million people unemployed. But in the UK, we have 800,000 vacancies every month. So we have an unemployment to vacancy ratio of 2 to 1. So one of the challenges that we really have is that we are very close, well, not very close, we are close to having full employment. And that's throwing up challenges for you guys because we have 3 sets of shortages at play. Now, when we talk to the media, quite often the whole thing is summarized as a skill shortage. But in reality, we have labour, skill, and talent shortages in the UK. And they're very different things. So, if you think about labour, this is about where we have difficulty finding people that just want to do the jobs. So if you think coffee shop barista, someone working in a factory as a picker or packer, someone picking fruit in the fields, and agriculture, these are the type of jobs. Let's then go back to coffee shop barista. You could teach someone to be a good coffee shop barista in a day. This is how to make a decent coffee, it's how to make a latte, it's how to make espresso. These are the cakes and biscuits. Be nice to the customers, and that's the till. So in reality, what we're talking about are jobs where you could train people to learn the job within a day. Within 2 or 3 days, they're highly competent. At the end of the week, they could be as good as your best coffee shop barista. So what that is, that's not a skill shortage, that's just a lack of people wanting to do the jobs that are available. So that's a labour shortage, and we have that right across the UK. Skill shortages are very different. This is where we don't have enough people with qualifications and experience to do the jobs that are available. So for the last 3 or 4 years, well, longer than that, last 5 years, we've had 3 areas of significant shortage, which have been pretty systematic in the UK labour market: engineering, technology, and digital. But over the last 4 years, the number of skill shortages and talent shortages that we see in the UK has gone from 10, 11 specific job titles to close to 100. And you've got chefs, teachers, nurses, HGV drivers. I can go on and on and on. So in most parts of our labour market, we have labour shortages and skill shortages. And then I really want to talk about the bit that we're all really thinking about, which is talent. Because I do need skill, but I need more than skill. I'm looking for the people that are going to make my organisation fly. So, the way I describe talent, when I was HR director at Royal Mail, we used the Gallup 3, which is a really good definition of talent. That is, I'm looking for people that are strategic thinkers, can look at market, can look at trends, can look at the outside environment, but they can roll up their sleeve and make something happen. So it's not ivory tower strategic thinking. Second area of talent is that around change orientation. People that can live with ambiguity, looking to lead change, looking for continuous improvement. And the third area, let's do a quick piece of audience participation, as there's only 8 or 9 of us in the room. What do you think the third area of talent is? Come on, have a guess. Second, innovation? No. Other ideas? So we've got strategic thinking. Second? No. Inspire and motivate others. So, if you start to think about, let's say I'm hiring a financial controller. So the skill requirement I'd be looking for is, 10 years professional experience, worked in a similar industry, professionally qualified, numerate, understands a P&L and a profit and loss, skill. But then you go, what I'm really looking for to make my business fly is someone who's a strategic thinker, can live with change, can drive change, and can inspire and motivate others. And if any of you are recruiting finance professionals, you understand that if you go to the labour market with those requirements, that's a real challenge. So what we have today in the UK labour market is labour, skill, and talent shortages at play. So most employers are suffering with at least one of those, if not 2 of them. Now, as we look into the future, 4 sort of imminent trends, things that are already there that are going to hit us over the next 2 to 3, 4 years. The first one is we've got an ageing UK workforce. We have less people in our labour market in the next decade than we have had for the last 40 years. So we've got labour, skill and talent shortages now, but if you look at the data around our jobs market, we have a real shrinkage in just the number of people of working age available to work in the next decade. And that comes from, if you just look at the core demographics, there's a great book by a Canadian demographer called Boom Bust Echo, which I would recommend to you. Boom is the baby boomers, my generation. We're leaving the labour market, and we'll continue to leave it over the next 10 years. Bust was the core workforce that we would have now, but basically were born in the 70s and early 80s. That's when we had the pill was invented and our birth rate shrunk significantly. Hence why that population that's working through the labour market now is just that much smaller. And then we've got Echo, which are the kids of the baby boomers who are just entering the labour market. So in about 15 to 20 years, we get another blip where the labour market starts to grow. But for the next 10 years, we've just got less people available. Flexibility. This is interesting. So this is where you start to look at where are the fastest growing parts of the labour market. And if you look in North America, you look in most of the developed economy around the world, but particularly in the UK, fastest growing part of the labour market are professionals and managers opting out from full-time permanent employment, working flexibly. So if you look at the UK, we've got 5.8 million people working self-employed, freelancers, contractors, whatever it is. The reason, if you look at the data about why they're working this way, 3 things. 1, they get frustrated with their current jobs. If you look at the data and the survey information, they will talk about, I got fed up with the politics, I got fed up with the hours, I got fed up with managing large teams, managing projects, the travel. So if you think about it, what they're saying is they got fed up with the job that they were doing. Secondly, what they found since they've opted out and working flexibly, whether they're an interim, freelancer, run their own business, whatever you call it, is that they've got more work-life balance. They can spend more time with their partner, interacting with their aging parents, looking after their children, studying, working from home. So the challenge that I say to employers is every single one of you, or mid-career professionals and managers, is at risk because they're frustrated in their current job. They are frustrated by the lack of work-life balance, and most of them, if they work flexibly, can get control of those two things and earn them the same or more. So what you have, labour, skill, talent shortages already. You've got a shrinking population over the next decade. Your managers and professionals may well choose to opt out. Now let's go to young people. I've got a 23-year-old son. He's an enigma to me. I love him dearly. But if you think about young people's attitudes, we've been hiring, because of some of these shortages, graduates and apprentices like they're going out of fashion. But all the data shows, there's a fantastic study by Accenture that they've done every 10 years, working attitudes of young people and career aspirations. And in 91, 17% said that they wanted to run their own business, be an entrepreneur. They did it again in 2011. So what do you think the percentage was in 2011? So 17% in 91, higher or lower? Higher. How about you? Higher, lower? Come on. Higher, but not by much? What do you reckon? Oh, higher, definitely higher. Give me a number. Quick, give us a number. Too much pressure. No? Go on, you give us a number. 17% in 91. 25? 83% said at some point in their career they wanted to run their own business. And some of this is to do with a very jaundiced view of big business. So I talk about my son quite a lot, but his friends come round to our house often to practice their music. And most of them talk about Amazon, Nike, Starbucks, all from a very negative perspective. Partly it might be their hiring. I was working at home the other Friday, and my wife was out, and I must have answered the door about 10 times to Yodel and different people doing delivery. But my son has a major problem, so it's a major debate in our house. My wife thinks Amazon is fantastic because we can get anything delivered to our door. My son thinks they're, evil incarnate. But what is interesting, so in the next 5 years, as we hire more graduates, more apprentices, we take on more people with potential and train them. At the back of their head, they're going, yeah, but I'm going to suck up all this learning and development and then go off and do my own thing. So we've got another risk, which is young people deciding to opt out and run their own careers earlier. And then finally, and I could talk about the TV, and there's no surprise, because if you look at the sort of programs that we've had on TV for the last 10 years, I'm passionate about business. I think it's great that we have business programs. But if you think about The Apprentice, I think most of those people are unemployable, don't you? Because it's about, I'm brilliant, I've run the project, but Peter's let me down because he couldn't sell, and this person on my team was really disappointing because he didn't get the right price. So I am brilliant, and everyone else is rubbish. Then let's look at Dragon's Den. What a fantastic piece of entertainment that is. But it is entertainment, I talked to James Kahn, who's quite big in the recruitment industry. He hasn't had one successful business. They have one successful business per series, not per episode, per series. And that's because, the idea that I was in the bath, I had this epiphany, I've got a fantastic idea, and I just want £150,000 for 5% of my business, It's not the idea that's the hard bit. It's getting the finance, it's getting the people, getting the marketing strategy, and launching a product. So, without the whole X Factor and reality TV that people have been pumped full of, I mean, I could like a bit of Strictly myself, and X Factor's all right, but you know, that stuff in the jungle leaves me cold, and that thing in the bedroom, but every time you turn on TV, it's all celebrity TV. The point I'm making is, it's no surprise that young people that are entering the labour market, whether you call them millennials or Generation Z, are thinking about, yeah, I want to go in, I want to learn, but I want to do my own thing. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to be in control of my own destiny. It's about me, me, me. And then, of course, in September of 2016, a fantastically self-inflicted wound on our labour market, which is, let's leave the European Union. And people go, yeah, well, you know, whatever your own politics are, 2.2 million, 7% of everybody at work comes from the EU. And if you look at the data which we have got, and if you want some data on this, there are certain sectors and certain geographical parts of the UK that have huge exposure. Construction in London, 33% of all the workers come from the EU. Across the NHS in the UK, 14%. If you look at academia, 37% of academics come from the EU. And the date that, you know, we haven't even got to the difficult part about a new immigration system, but they're coming in fewer numbers. We had net migration of 300,000, it's down to 200,000 and dropping like a stone. The people that have been here for a period of time are going back, and fewer people are arriving. So our labour market, which has been hugely dependent on people coming from the EU to work in both high-skilled and in low-skilled jobs, are not going to be available in the same numbers. And for the last 5 months, on our visa scheme, we have not been allowing all the people that want to apply from outside the UK with the right criteria to come into this country. So we have got a quite draconian immigration system, which is going to get tighter and tighter. So what I'm saying to you is, if you think you've got labour skill and talent shortages now, in the next few years, they're going to get worse because of increasing opt-out of your professionals, less people to choose from, young people coming in, sucking up the development, moving on, and less ability to use people from the EU. So that's the medium-term prognosis. Now I'm going to talk, I did a TEDx talk recently about the jobs market and AI and machine learning. And I'm just going to give you very, very quickly 5 macro trends. But for me, if you're running a resourcing or a recruitment team, understanding the marketplace and how you shop within it, I think is hugely important. So this is about job polarity. So when I was starting to think about the impact of AI, machine learning, 3D printing, Internet of Things, I started to say, well, what has been going on in the jobs market for the last 20 years? This is OECD material. Anything above this line indicates growth. So yellow dots, and this is every single developed economy, Austria, Switzerland, Ireland, Spain, Greece, Denmark, UK's there, Germany's there, Belgium, United States, Japan, Hungary, Czech. You can see yellow dots are high-paid, high-skilled jobs. For the 20-year period between 95 and 2015, every single developed economy has grown high-skilled, high-paid jobs. However, the interesting bit are the red dots. And the red dots are low-paid, low-skilled jobs. And they have grown in nearly every single developed economy as well. The jobs that are being eliminated, the orange dots, in every single of one of these 26 countries are the jobs in the middle of the labour market. Think insurance processing, bank office of a bank. This is having a huge impact in terms of career progression. Now, if you overlay what I'm going to talk about in terms of machine learning and AI and automation, more and more of the jobs in the middle of our labour market are the jobs that will be automated. If you think affluent person, possibly like us, you know, we outsource. We buy coffee at £2.50 from a Starbucks. Someone may do our dry cleaning. We may have cleaners. We may have gardeners. All of those jobs coffee shop barista, difficult to automate. But if we're affluent, the people on the right-hand side, Uber drivers, Deliveroo, we need more people in low-paid, low-skilled jobs to service our personal requirements. The jobs in the middle are the jobs traditionally where people used as a stepping stone to progress. So if you look in your organisation, so I didn't go to university, I did all my education later on. I worked in a local authority and then I got jobs elsewhere. And I was doing administrative jobs and I got promoted and I studied. Those jobs have all gone. They've been eliminated. Think around your organisation. How many of those jobs which are administrative, processing of applications, dealing with information, are still around that were around 5 years ago, let alone 10 years ago? So what's going to happen is the chasm in the jobs market is going to open. It's going to get bigger. So we're going to have more high-paid, high-skilled jobs, more low-paid, low-skilled jobs, but the jobs in the middle disappear. What that means for careers is that the late bloomers are going to struggle to get jobs in an organisation and then progress. And so for us, what you can see in the next 5, 10, 15 years, if you happen to be talented and you've got the skills, then you've got choice. You can choose where you work, when you work, whether you work full-time, part-time, flexibly. Fantastic. And if you're low-paid, low-skilled, then you're going to most probably have to continue to do 1 or 2 jobs to make ends meet. And if you don't, but the problem is how do you progress? How do you move from one part? So we're going to end up with a 2-tier labour market. The second point, I suppose, is just to touch on the thing that I alluded to about AI. So I gave evidence recently on an all-party parliamentary group looking at the impact of AI. And the piece of work that we've done called The Future of Jobs, that if any of you want to have a look at this, it's on our stand at the Good Recruitment campaign. It's a fantastic piece of work. We had Esther McVeigh, the MP, she chaired it for us. But one of the things that we can see is that every single study, so this is the seminal piece of work. You'll hear this in the media all the time, the robots are coming. It's by Martin Ford, okay? And he wrote this book in 2015. It was published. It won the McKinsey Book of the Year. And in his data, he talked about 38% of the jobs in the UK being automated in some way, shape, or form. Not the whole job, but some elements of the job. But 38% of the jobs being affected. PwC have done a piece of research. What's interesting about that? Their forecast is it's 30%. There's another study by some Oxford academics that talk about 32% of the jobs being automated. It doesn't really matter if it's 30, 32, or 38, because it's a third. We've got 32 million people in work. So 10 million jobs are at risk of automation in the next 15 years. Just think about the scale of what we're talking about. We're talking about a huge transformation in our labour market. And that's because of the whole thing. I saw a fantastic presentation recently by a professor of technology from the Massachusetts Institute. And he had this fantastic, I haven't got a flip chart, but hockey stick, basically. So he said, look, how old are you? And I was picked out in the crowd, and he talked to lots of people about my age. He said, look, you think there's been huge innovation and huge growth in technology. You think about big computer rooms and dust-till rooms, and then you think about the old computers with green text and all of that, and now you've got a mobile phone, and it's got smaller and smaller. He said, but if you look at a graph of the exponential growth of technology, we're basically flat. We're just at the inflection point, and it's going to go like that. So the ability to put technology together with devices to create huge benefits for us as consumers is phenomenal. But it will fundamentally, so I'm a diabetic, so I have to inject 4 times a day. But just think about this company. They've put all of their technology, there are factories around the world producing these pens for diabetics. But within 2 years, I'll be wearing a little pager on my belt with a little intravenous thing there that reads my insulin and then releases the right requirement of insulin. So what happens to all the millions of jobs around the world where people are manufacturing and thinking about product development of that system? And I can go on and on and on. I can talk about 3D printing, but all of them are going to fundamentally change the jobs market. So the first macro trend is we have job polarity, which will get worse as AI and we automate jobs. But the amount of jobs that could be affected are significant. Now, we will create more jobs and different jobs, but the issue is, will the million people that are currently drivers, so when do we get self-driving cars? Will it be 5 years? Will it be 10 years? There's a debate, but it will come. 1 million jobs undertaken by people that drive, HGV drivers, van drivers, taxi drivers, okay? Minicab drivers. What jobs do they do? Are they going to get the jobs as the data analyst? Are they going to get the jobs working in marketing functions? I'm not sure they are. So what we have is some huge challenges in terms of how people progress. The next thing I wanted to just very, very quickly talk about was what creates value in our jobs market in the UK. And every study that you look at is intellectual capital is what drives value in our businesses. So brands, relationships, innovation, ideas, design. So the point is that people are more valuable than ever before. So the third macro trend is actually the talent element. So these guys are Funky Business and Karaoke Capitalism are two of my favorite books. Shel Nordstrom, if you ever get the chance to see him, he's a fantastic presenter. And for the last 10 years, they've been talking about it's talent that makes capital dance. It's not access to money. It's not machinery. It's about getting great people in rooms. So that's the challenge. So what we have is the third macro trend is people are going to become more important. The fourth macro trend, Linda Grattan, people are going to live much longer. Longevity is increasing and accelerating. So what we have is 90%, or let's go the other way. 90% of your children will live to 100. That means people will be retiring in their late 70s, early 80s. It means careers are going to be 50 to 60 years. And go back to what I talked about in job polarity. So we are potentially going to be condemning lots of people to do low-level, low-skilled jobs for 50 to 60 years. So I think we have some huge challenges in our society, but more importantly, some real challenges for organizations. So if you want to hear more about the challenges for society, I'll send you to my TED Talk. But that's the third trend. Fourth trend, Simon Sinek, getting to why. How many of you have seen the TED Talk? 2 or 3 of you. I would recommend it. It's been watched by 27 million people. I was on a platform with him not long ago, £150,000 for his hour. That's what a video can do for you. Listen to that, 155 book deals. Fantastic. Anyhow, great piece of thinking. It's based on the way that the brain operates. So this is my fourth trend, and that is that we have to work more with this purpose and meaning. You know, we talk about what and how a lot. We use, the neurocortex. We talk about information, data, insight, logic, language. But in reality, it's emotions. And when you think about attracting talent and keeping talent, it's the why question. Why should I work for you? If you think about your brand and how you present it to the external world, why should I work with you and not your competitors? And it isn't just about the what and the how, the core product, it's about how you make me feel about your organization. Now, people always go to me, Kev, I think you're talking bollocks at this time. So what I do is I tell them some stories. So I talk about the John Lewis advert at Christmas. My wife gets incredibly excited in November, okay? She starts talking to her friends on Facebook. Have you seen it yet? What's it going to be? Is it going to be the little penguin, the monster under the bed, the man in the moon? And you go, why do people like that advert? And you know, because it makes them do what? When they watch it, what noise do you make? It's emotion. Now, what has happened to John Lewis and Waitrose sales in the last 5 years? At Christmas, it goes like that. They do not say, come to John Lewis, buy all your Christmas presents, we're never knowingly undersold. They don't talk about any of that. They just show you a nice bit of emotion and then say, John Lewis. Second one I'm going to tell you about is Apple and iPad, right? How many people have got a tablet? Hands down. How many people have got an iPad? Right. My dad's an engineer. Every single list of tablets, the iPad comes out mid-table. It's not as good as many other products in the marketplace. Pricing strategy, they charge twice as much as any other product. So, Just think about this for a moment. Think about how much money your business would be making if you could have half as good a product and charge twice as much. So, if I said, why did you buy an iPad? Why did you go to Apple? Some point you will go, it's to do with the brand. That's why you're buying it. You've bought into some, whether it's the design or what it is it the funky music? Think about how they advertise out their products. A white pair of headphones jumping around and a bit of Beyonce music. Apple 8 or Apple X. People queue in the morning to buy the new product. You go through London when they launch a new product, there's a queue of 250 people waiting at 6 o'clock in the morning to go and get an Apple product. That's the power of brand and emotion. So, when you start to think about your brand in terms of attracting talent, you need to think about, have we really got into the hook of why and how and the emotional response so people will feel positive about it. WestJet is a fantastic video. If any of you love the, what's it called, the film at Christmas? Martine McCutcheon. Love Actually. Fantastic film. The marketing director of that used it to reposition a whole business that was in Chapter 11 and has gone to be one of the most successful airlines in the States. So have a look at the video. I'm not going to talk about BMW. Good recruitment campaign. It's fantastic. I said I'd mention some research. Candidates. So, in a labour market which is short of labour, skill and talent, and it's going to get harder in the next 3 years because of what I talked about, and then harder still in the next 10 years, you have got to differentiate yourselves, and you have got to be great at attracting and then managing the experience of your candidates. We did a survey called Perfect Match, the one in the middle. 4 out of 5 candidates, and we interviewed 3,000 candidates, have never, ever been asked for any feedback about their experience. So if we're meant to, if the candidate is the product of the recruitment process, how are you going to get any better if you don't get data from the people that are experiencing your product? So the start about any kind of candidate experience stuff is measure, get feedback. Not just from the people that get the job, but from candidates throughout the process so that you can see where the problems are in your process. Everyone thinks it's great, they like it online, they apply. They then get an email back that doesn't even use their first name out of the ETS. Dear candidate, fill in this form. They then plug away 25 pages, taking them an hour and a half, only to get a very short, you will not fit this job. I'm pissed off. There are lots of things we're using with technology that are making it worse for the candidate, not better. So more and more candidates are saying the experience is getting worse, even though we're meant to be working harder to attract them and make it easier to bring them in. The next piece of data is the cost of getting it wrong. So this piece of research was, the candidate strikes back is the one about candidate experience. Perfect match is the cost of getting it wrong. So we did a longitudinal study. We talked to lots of employers. We got them to give us lots of examples of where jobs went wrong, where hires went wrong, and we put a quantitative amount, a pure piece of money against it. 42,000 job. The person leaves in that job within 6 months. Cost to organisation, 132 grand. Pounds, shillings, pence. Rehire, loss of earnings. So what we're saying to you is, 1, we've got to be better at bringing candidates in. Secondly, we've got to be fantastic at making sure our processes are right. Otherwise, this is a hugely... So think about how you justify investment in recruitment technology. If we get it wrong, 2/3 of the salary for every single job. So isn't it better to design the processes to make sure that we're good at this and that we make less mistakes? But also, 24% of people said, that's not the one, there's another fantastic figure, which is 75% of HR and heads of resourcing said they had made a strategic bad hire. That means it's someone above 100K in the last 6 months. So this is happening all the time. This isn't a rarity. This is something that we're doing day in, day out. I'm not going to talk about peer review or mentoring. Those are some of the companies that are signed up to the Good Recruitment campaign. It's free. You can get, there's mentoring, there's a peer review, we've got free benchmarking. We'd love you to sign up. If any of you haven't talked to me or haven't been inspired by this, then you don't need to go to Stand 40. If you have, then go to Stand 40 and Steve and Cuba are there and they will sign you up. We've also developed an in-house qualification for resources, which was driven by the companies that signed up to the Good Recruitment campaign, saying help us train and develop our people. And if you sign up, you get the opportunity to come to our conference in July the 4th in London, where we have 16 roundtables, 3 panels, 3 keynote speakers, and again, all of that's free. And it's all about the talent agenda. So I'm not going to say any more. Hopefully what I've done is I've talked about the problems we have in the labour market today, some of the challenges in the next 3 years, what it looks like in the longer term, which means that we've got to be much better at EVPs, attracting candidates, thinking about the candidate experience, and being much better at getting the hiring decisions right. Here's my final thing, right? My final little message is, interviews are poor predictors of job performance. We have known that. The data has been available for 40 years. Why are we still using it as the key mechanism for selecting people? You know, use multiple people, because that helps you make sure there's no unconscious bias. Get them to do practical work-based activity as close to what they do within the job. Get multiple people to view it. You'll end up with much more successful hires. End of my presentation. Thank you for listening to me.